Hello, friends. I am Chevy. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? Hope it's fantastic. Everything here is great. And you know how I said it's done? It's not done. It really isn't. And I can't. I can't. I think. I think honestly, this has been in the back of my head a problem that's literally like making me feel not ill, but just wrong for a couple of days now, or for a week now, or something like that. It's not done. It's just I can't say this is my favorite version of this game. This is, by the way, this is the six-fold board, the large board that I increased. I had to basically make this board to make room for this track because there was no place for that track on the little board. And that track is the reason I'm saying this game isn't done. That track is a result of me not finding a better solution for figuring out when rounds end. In the original game, you had a hand of cards. You played a card, and it allowed you to put trains on a table on this map, right? You played a card. It would have 3 trains in a line. You'd put them on the map. You picked a company, you did that sort of stuff. And in that version of the game, there was a fixed number of companies out each round, or of shares. And so you would grab a share, you would do the thing, and then that was your turn. You would earn a bonus, and then you would get some stuff. That version of the game worked, but the cards that had you putting trains on the map were really awkward, and I didn't like them. So this year, after letting the game sit for almost a full year, I threw that deck of cards away, and I made the shares the cards that you're now using. And so those shares, you play a share of any company. There's 5 companies. And then that share gives you a certain amount of trains that you can put on the board. And then you put them on the board. That works so much better. All along this way, I was trying to figure out a way to make the game work for 2 players without it being just, majority of shares wins. Because majority of shares wins is not an interesting outcome for the game. It would end up being these huge swingy points, and it just didn't work. Very early, I came up with this mechanic where, as you make connections to cities, cities provide commodities. Commodities are where you're going to earn your value. Like, not necessarily the shares of the company, but the cities that you connect to, the particular colors of cities. And so I made this chart. This is a very later version. This is way superior to the original version. But essentially, as you make a connection to a city, you earn commodity value in that share. And if at the end of a round, if you have the majority of that commodity, meaning that the marker is on your side of the board, you earn a bonus. So it's kind of a tug of war. I can connect into a purple city. I'm going to move the purple commodity towards my side of the board. If you connect, you'll move it back towards your side. At the end of the round, whoever side it's on earns value. And then there's 3 rounds, and we do that 3 times. That is kind of the secret sauce of the game. That's what makes it work for a 2-player scenario. It's not just majority of shares wins, majority of this wins. And so for that reason, I need to have some form of round structure so that we can get payoff. If it's just you get paid once at the end of the game, it's not an interesting mechanic at all. It works really well as a tug of war throughout the game. It means, do you save big moves for the end of the game when it's going to pay you the most, or do you take incremental moves throughout the game? It is the game. That table is the game. The board is the restriction with how you act upon that table, meaning that where the cities are placed on these gray squares, so all those gray squares are random cities, where the cities are placed, where the available companies are in relation to those cities, those are restrictions that restrict your interaction with that table, but that table is the game, and it works really well. So, with this version of the game, I decided that I would still have a fixed number of shares per round, but they would be randomized. They wouldn't be just put out these 8, put out these 12, put out these 8. And so I started with putting cards in the deck. So you would play a card, draw a card, and that worked okay. But the problem with that was this is a card game, right? And I wanted to be able to play with that deck a little bit. I wanted to be able to say, you can draw some cards from the deck, you can put cards back in the deck, you can look at cards in the deck, and if there's supposed to be a fixed number, I can't do that. I can't do the deck manipulation stuff. So I decided to remove that portion and go towards a connections-based round ending. So, play a card, place trains on the board. Typically, you're going to make a connection every single turn, if you choose to. You don't have to, but usually you want to, because connections earn you connection bonuses. That's what this other table down here is, connection bonuses. So you want to make connections on the board. So theoretically, the number of connections in play matches the current turn. So on my turn, I make a connection. Your turn, you make a connection. I get the third turn, I'm going to make a third connection, right? So I made it so that this chart now replaces the round cards in the deck, but more importantly, that chart gives each round a variable ending, because there are situations where you can make multiple connections. There are situations where stalling might be advantageous to you. And those are really interesting decisions that I'm trying very, very hard to keep in the game, but I'm also trying to remove that track. And I haven't quite found the solution. I don't want to go back to shuffling stuff in the deck because, one, that means fixed round lengths, which are fine, but they're not nearly as interesting as the variable round lengths. That means I can't play with the deck. I can't have you looking at cards. I can't have you drawing from the deck. I can't have those special powers that you earn at the end of each round doing something special. So I've been working on a solution that I think... So here's the reason I need a solution. Let me tell you why I need a solution. It's too much. On your turn, you play a card, you put some trains on the board. Theoretically, that train is going to connect to a city, right? You're going to put some trains out and it's going to connect somewhere. Once you've done that, you have to determine, do you owe anything? Did you cross water? Did you play on an occupied space? Those cost you money. Then you have to figure out, okay, I played a blue card, so I advanced this one space. I earned that much money. Well, I made a connection with a blue train, so the blue company now pays me a dividend. I get that much money. I have to move this thing one space forward on the track, and I have to move whatever commodity connection I made as well. So I play my card, I put out some trains. That's the easiest part of the turn. Now I have to move this, connect to that, or collect to that, maybe get some money, maybe lose money, move this, move this. It's a lot for I just want to play a card. That's the reason it's not done yet. I still haven't found that solution. What I'm leaning towards, and so what I'm here to do is ask you, are there any games with variable round length that you can point me towards so I can try to get a bit of reference? What I'm thinking is I remove this connections track completely, and I no longer make this chart about connections. I make this chart about the number of shares in play. And so what I could do is say, as soon as two companies reach the number 2 spot on this board, the first round ends. And what that means is we could play 7 total turns before that has to happen. That is if each of us plays, if we play one of each and then we have to play the second. So we'd have 7 turns for the first round max. I don't like that so much. I might do once one of these companies reaches 3. That's a little bit more of an interesting decision. That's going to guarantee 6 turns, maybe a little less if we match. I don't know yet. I'm thinking that instead of this track and instead of this being connection based, it's going to be just number of shares in play. And so say as soon as 2 companies have 3 shares in play, the first round ends. As soon as 2 companies have 6 shares in play, the second round ends. And as soon as 2 companies have, or as soon as one company has 7 shares in play or something, so I can make it I can make the round, I can keep that variable length, but I can also reduce the amount of things you're doing. Because with that, you wouldn't even really have to have a marker over here. You could just look and see, all right, you're about to play the second thing. You could use the markers if you want, just to keep track, but you could just count real quick. And that means you now play a card, put some trains on the board, move the marker on the commodity track, and you're done. That's it. You get your cash, but you don't have to move markers all over this board. And I think that's the hang up that I've been having is there's got to be a cleaner way, and I don't know what that is. So again, if you can think of games that have variable round endings that are based on game state, let me know. Or if you can think of a better game state just with the simple explanation I've given you here for a train game, let me know, because I'm struggling to find that clean solution that works well, that doesn't have weird side loopholes. Oh! The other reason I'm thinking about this being being card-based, not connection-based, is because you can stall in this game. Going last in the round is important because it gives you last stab at that market. And so you can play a card and just not make a connection. Just put trains randomly on the board. It's kind of a bad play because you're probably going to set your opponent up for a better turn, but if you really want to go second, you can do that. The problem is, what happens if both players just keep doing that? The game state could progress to the point that it doesn't ever get beneficial for one player to take a turn, and so we're just putting one train off on the corner of the map because I just need to burn my turn. Making this table based on the number of cards we play means that the game has to advance, regardless of what you choose to do as a player. Even if you choose to stall indefinitely, you can't, because the game is progressing. Hopefully some of that makes sense, but I'm still searching for the answer. Once I find that answer, the game is done. Ish. Let me know if you have any recommendations. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is nullify. It is a verb meaning to make something valueless or ineffective. We keep our collections under lock and key because sometimes merely breathing on them nullifies their value. Nullify, N-U-L-L-I-F-Y. That's another one of those words in here that I don't necessarily think is a smart word. I feel like that's a pretty commonly used word. Am I wrong?